contrary to my appearance and my demeanor, I've not always been a raging lesbian. I know you were assuming, and feel free to assume, because your assumptions are correct. I'm a raging homo, currently, right? But when I was growing up, that was not always the case, or was not at the forefront of my consciousness, my awareness. I grew up in Virginia. I grew up in a very Republican conservative household. Irish Catholic. We went to church every Sunday. Not the kind of Catholic where you actually know anything about God or religion. You know, it's just kind of like the Catholic where you like show up, you zone out, you eat a donut at the end of it, you go home. There were rosaries and a statue of Mother Mary next to my bed, and the only prayer my family would say, and that we still say today consistently, is, "Dear St. Anthony, please come around. Something is lost, and it must be found." Because the only true important prayer is, "Dear God, where the fuck is my shit?" That was the extent of my Catholicism growing up. But when I got to be the age of 14, I got swept up into this kind of cultish, very cultish Christian organization at my high school called Young Life. And it was like this it was supposed to be like really hip and really cool. And it was supposed to just like, meet the teenagers where they're at, and meet them on their level, And so I went to this meeting, and it's essentially like, it's an hour-long meeting, and you go and they like play really cool music, like Brown Eyed Girl, and you sing along, and then they do like Saturday Night Live skits, and there's no talk of Jesus until the very end. And then at the very end, they like they've now like made you want to sing along, and so then you just like awkwardly sing along to this really Christian song about Jesus, and then they tell you a story about Jesus from the Bible, and then they give you the option of whether or not you want to accept Jesus into your heart. And they tell you you don't have to. They're like, it's no big whoop, like you don't have to do it right now. But then they give you like 20 minutes to think about it, and then after the 20 minutes are up, they're like, okay, so if you accepted Jesus into your heart, stand up so we can give you a round of applause. So if you didn't, you're just sitting there like, okay, like I'm just gonna go ahead and, I didn't, but I'm just going to go ahead and stand up, because otherwise you're like the freak who didn't accept Jesus in your heart. So that's how I got swept into this. Like I literally like did not mean to accept Jesus into my heart. Like I don't remember ever actually saying that prayer, but I just kind of went with the flow. And that was kind of the way I was in high school. And I just kind of went with the flow. And all of a sudden, I was wrapped up in this organization, and I was super like fun and outgoing and spunky and everything. So I ended up leading Young Life. Like I ended up getting in so deep that I went on mission trips to like Honduras and Dominican Republic, and like, I was so deep in it that I like washed my youth pastor's feet with holy water and then dried it with my own hair. You know what I mean? Like that kind of deep, because it was biblical, right? Because that was in the written word of God. So anything in that Bible was like, we should believe, and that's it, right? So by the time I graduated high school, I was like knee deep in Christianity. I had like quit sports. I like stopped caring about school, my grades, anything. I really disconnected from my parents who were like going through a divorce, and I just like threw myself into Christianity. And then I graduated high school, and some shit went down, and then that kind of threw me off kilter, like college. And but I was still devoted to it. And my mom and my stepdad decided to take my stepsister and I to New York City for like a bonding trip, like a family bonding trip. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've gotten really good at leading people to Jesus Christ. Like, if you don't even understand how many people by the age of 21 I had coerced into accepting Jesus. Like football players, cheerleaders, goth kids, gay kids. Like I was the best Christian in high, like I was like a salesman, like I could just get anybody. I would draw this like really simple illustration of the cross, and I'd be like, we're over here, here's a cliff, there's this big fucking like void, and then here's God over here, and here's a cross, and we just got to walk over it by accepting Jesus into our heart, and then we're there and we're good to go. And people were like, oh my God, yeah. Because all our little undeveloped brains, right, that have like no sense of logic and reason, which is why it's all fucked up. So then my parents take us to New York City, and I'm like, okay, my sister has just come out as a lesbian. She's my stepsister, might I add. That's really important to the story so that you don't judge me later for what I'm about to tell you. So we go to New York City, and I'm like, this is my opportunity to bring her back from her sin to Jesus Christ. Because she has strayed. She's lesbian. She has strayed. This is my opportunity. I got this in the fucking bag. Obviously, I didn't say fucking because I was Christian. We go to New York. We're with my parents. She's like, hey, why don't we go get a beer and catch up? And I was like, I don't drink, but I'll go with you because I'm going to teach you how to accept Jesus, is what I'm thinking. I'm like, this is my fucking opportunity. She wants to be alone with me. Oh, my God. So we go to this bar. It's like really late at night. And she orders us 2 beers. I was like, I'm not drinking. She's like, you'll love it. I'm like, okay. So I start drinking this beer. And I'm like thinking the whole time I'm scheming, like, how am I going to get her to accept Jesus? Like, how do I bring up Jesus? She's talking about, like, pussy and, like, how she figured out she was gay. And, like, how do I work this in, you know? Like, Jesus didn't even have sex. Like, I don't know how to work it in. And she's talking, and I'm getting drunker because I'm sipping my alcohol. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at her, and I'm like, she's so pretty. She's really attractive. And I was like, I got to go to the bathroom and splash water on my face because this is inappropriate. So I was like, excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom. And I went to the bathroom, and I'm like staring at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, this is, no, absolutely not. I don't know what kind of Satan is tempting you right now because he's got a firm grasp on your stepsister. And he wants you, he knows you're on the verge of bringing her back to the light. And he wants to get you on her side too. He's really working his, no way, I'm not falling for this shit, Satan. So I say a couple of prayers. I splash some water on my face. I go back out to the bar. She's ordered me another beer. I'm like, oh, shit, here we go. So I start drinking that one, and all of a sudden I'm wasted. I'm just wasted, and there's been no mention of Jesus. And I'm like, can we go back to the hotel? I'm like really tired and I'm drunk. And she's like, yeah. And on the way out, the bartender says to us, who in hindsight I now realize was a raging lesbian, but like I didn't really get it at the time. I was just like, who's this like kind of older Katie Lang looking tomboy that owns the bar? She's like, hey girls. Like I guess she and my stepsister probably were like, whoop, gay. And she's like, do you guys want to do like some shots of Patron? And my stepsister's Mexican. And she like starts speaking in Spanish. And she's like, you got to do this. You never had it. You got to try it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm wasted. And I'm like, I give up. So we do like 3 shots of Patron. And mind you, I've never had a drink in my life. And she knows nothing of that. She's been drinking since we were children. So she's fine. And she's essentially had an O'Doul's, you know, and I'm trashed. So we leave, we're crossing the street. All of Times Square is like tilted for me, and I'm just like, what is this is amazing. And we cross the street, we get back to the hotel, the like doorman's smoking a cigarette, he's foreign. I'm like, we smoke with him. It's like my first cigarette I've ever had. And he starts talking about like social injustices, and he's telling us how he was like a doctor in his home country, but in America he can only be a doorman. And she's like riffing on that, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so sexy when people are like all about social injustice. Like she knows so much, you know. And I'm like just feeling it. I'm just looking at her like fucking yeah. And she's got her hair pulled back in a scrunchie, and I'm just like, this girl. So then I'm like, we got to go upstairs. So we get in the elevator, and we're leaning against, like, she's on one side, and I'm on the other. You know when you're just, like, into somebody, but you're wasted, and you're just like. And I'm thinking, I'm going to bring up Jesus. Because I don't know if you guys have ever been deep into Christianity, but like it's all you think about when you're that fucked up mentally from it. Every opportunity is like, I'm going to lead them to the Lord, you know? Every opportunity. So I go back to that place, and then she's staring at me like that, and she goes, can I kiss you? And I was like, yeah. Like the word yes just came out of my mouth like I didn't even think. And as soon as I said it, she just like rushed at me, and all gay hell broke loose, and we just made out on every wall in the elevator. We got up to the floor, the door opened, we were like, she's slamming me against the wall in the hallway, we're making out by a window, and then all of a sudden her dad comes out of the hotel room. And to be honest, I don't know what he actually saw and if he saw it, because none of us have ever spoken about it. But I do know that the next day, He gave me a lot of strange looks. He didn't hug me once, and he's a very affectionate man. And he bought me a pea coat because it was very cold, but he didn't offer to buy my street nuts, and I found that odd. I felt like he was holding something against me and that maybe he knew, but we never spoke about it. Anna and I never spoke about it. She's a Marine now. She's married to her captain because once Don't Ask, Don't Tell was whatever that word is. I just forgot the word. Repealed. Thank you. She's like, fuck this. I'm going to get with my captain. And now they're pregnant with twins, which is wonderful. But now I get to run around telling people that my first kiss with a girl was with my sister. So please don't judge me. And thank you for letting me get that off my chest finally. Thanks. I'm Mav.